Hey folks, another night here in the shop. I should be working on getting the Spitfire running and driving, but that sounds too much like work. So we're having a little fun rebuilding some gauges. Well, rebuilding may not be the right term, but definitely cleaning up. So this is one of the original, presumably, gauges out of the 65 Spitfire, so the first one I bought. A little bit of gunk on the lens, but yeah, it's well older than I am by a few decades, and I think it turned out pretty good. This is one I already did. This is the fuel gauge, which is as removed from the car. So I did test that these work. I might even show you a little clip of that. I've got a big variable power supply here, and was able to just set a couple milliamps or a few milliamps and bump the voltage up from 0 to 12, and you can kind of see the needle slowly walk up and down, especially on this fuel gauge. It's definitely got some sort of a I can't pronounce the word, but it's got a way of debouncing the needle, so it moves really slowly, so when you go in a corner it doesn't empty, show empty all of a sudden. So let's take this guy apart. First thing is there's a O-ring on the back. It's a square profile O-ring, which is of course fossilized now. So actually it's in not bad shape. You can get it out in one piece, but that was like a 50-cent part or something. So I've got all new O-rings. I actually bought these thinking that they were the gasket that goes inside of these. I didn't notice that there was an O-ring on the back. But so now, you see here we've got 3 little tabs, and then there's 3 gaps in this inner ring, so the chrome is held in with those 3 tabs. So I am getting that to turn a little bit, but we're going to hit that with a little bit of heat. Tools wise, you really don't need anything that you probably don't already have in the shop. I've got some Q-tips, I've got some glass cleaner, air duster, and that's about it. So I just want to heat this guy up. There's a gasket in there that's petrified. So I'm just going to heat it up a little bit. The first one of these was a lot tighter, and I couldn't get it off without either distorting it or heating it, so of course I heated it. I'm working on my big woodworking workbench here, and I've got some hardboard and then just a piece of craft paper. I really like having that on my bench. Keeps it nice and clean. I don't want to go crazy with the heat here because I've got to touch it here in a second. And then I grabbed gloves and ended up not wearing them. Sometimes gloves, my skin is unbelievably dry right now from sanitizing and what I do. So I got a little bit hotter than I wanted to. This is just glass cleaner. I'm just working a little bit in. That last time that really helped, especially while it's hot. And then I'll just wipe off the extra. So I've gotten it so I can wiggle it. So if I just keep working that back and forth, it should eventually free up. I've got to move it about another 20-30 degrees counterclockwise to get the holes to line up. But gentle, no reason to rush here. You can see just from that little bit of heat and condensation or moisture, I got some condensate in here. Actually, well, I could clean up this outer face a little bit. This is just my Dremel with a brass brush. This is what I think is passivated zinc coating plated steel. If I was going for a concourse restoration, I take this whole thing apart, clean it, replace the face, maybe with a new sticker, and then replate everything, but it doesn't matter. Okay, there, it just clicked. So now I should be able to just sort of work this off. Yep. So those tabs line up. So now we've got the face. This is that old sealant I was telling you about. It's nasty, and I want it all gone because I want to put new stuff in there. That's just, yeah, that's pretty gross. Again, 55-year-old stuff. So I'm just gonna scrape out the bulk of it. Just a little small screwdriver that happened to be sitting on my bench. This stuff's actually, I think it's because it's still a little warm. I bet if I heated that up, it would have come out more as a goo. On the first one, it was, by the time I actually got it apart and was cleaning it, it was just brittle. So we'll get that apart. Now I've got some more of that glass cleaner here. We'll see if this works. And just go at it with a shop towel. This isn't rocket science. I just want it fairly clean. It's certainly not, we're not at a NASA clean room or anything. Just my dirty shop. So get that clean-ish. Call it good. Doing that one more time. Maybe use a clean towel this time. I used degreaser on the first one. It's on my other bench, so I'm just using Windex. It doesn't matter. It's just something soapy. I'm not even Windex. This is a different brand, but you know, glass cleaner. I think that's pretty good. So we can set this aside. I'll clean up the chrome on these. I mean, that chrome is really, really nice to me. I have some of this chrome metal polish. I've used this stuff. I've had the same thing for a decade, say. I don't know, we can take a little bit of it. It smells like turpentine or something. I don't know. I think it reminds me of my grandfather shining shoes, maybe, when I was young. Apparently, smell is a really important way of remembering. Like, our brains are wired for smell. To memory, they're real close together in the brain, so I don't know. I like the smell of shoe shine. Not that I shine my shoes, because I wear sandals. Anyway, just babbling. So, yeah. There's nothing even coming up on that stuff, so just wipe off what's left. I could spend an hour or two polishing, but if we're sitting this close and looking at it and it looks good, it's certainly going to look good in the dash. So now we've got the actual gauge. There's a little bit of that sealant left. We'll get rid of that. So these are Jaeger, British, made in UK. They're actually Smiths, apparently. Presumably also made in the UK with a rebanded face. So Classic Mini and stuff like that uses these. So now I've got a little bit of moisture in there. There's a little bit of dirt. You can kind of see where the needle sweeps there, not that it's touching, but there's a little bit of dirt in there. And I have ruined gauges before trying to clean them. So I'm not going to do much of anything. This white paint is basically just powdered after this long. I think I found that it's actually almost like a water-based paint. So this is just more of that Windex on on the outer bezel there, just to try to clean that up a little bit. I don't want to see. I would much rather have a dirty gauge than one that's missing its numbers. So that's about all we're gonna do. I think a lot of the powder in here is actually old gauge lettering. So I'll blow that out with a little. Again, this is a fuel gauge, so it is electronic. This is where the light goes for nighttime illumination. I don't know. This gauge isn't going to clean up quite as nice as the other one, but it'll do. Just trying to get that off. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to. I hardly want to breathe on this stuff. So we've got a clean bezel. We've got the cleanish gauge. We've got a new O-ring. Those are now trash. But I need that sealant, and I have absolutely no idea what that sealant was. But I know what I'm going to use to replace it, and that is this stuff. 3M. So this is left over from when I replaced the windshield in my Mercedes. Kind of stuffed this in all around, and it never hardens, or shouldn't ever harden. I think it's butyl. Anyway, so I need to lay that into this, and on the last one I found that maybe 2 inches of material was enough. I'm gonna tear off a little bit. So this is non-adhesive. It's a little sticky, but it's non-adhesive and it won't set. So another 55 years down the road, if this car still exists and if humanity still exists, somebody else can take this apart and clean it out. And I'm sure the car will be converted to electric by then, if it's still on the road. So I'm just stretching that out. I want it to be, you know, long enough to kind of cover the whole gauge, and pretty thin. I'd rather have too little than too much here. It's easy enough to go add more. It's not that hard to take it out again, but so I'm gonna work this in. I want it to favor, the last time I did this, the first time I did it on the other gauge, I put too much in. Had about 50% more than I needed. But I'm trying to favor the inside of the bezel, because if it squeezes out there, it gets on the front of the glass and I can clean it off and we're all golden. If it squeezes off in the back, it gets into here where that sealant was before, and it might show. I had a little bit of a problem with that the first time. So then I'm going to take my little screwdriver and just kind of work it in. I could probably wet this with some of that glass cleaner, but I just want it to be a little bit proud of the surface here when it squishes out of this inner ring. By the way, if you're wondering why it takes so long to restore this car, why I've been doing this for a year and a half, 2 years, well, it's kind of why. Stupid TV shows and a lot of even, well, not necessarily YouTubers, but, well, yes, a lot of YouTubers also will, they wouldn't show you this in the first place, obviously, because it's not particularly award-winning TV, but, you know, they would have just gone out and spent the money on new gauges, but that could be $500, I bet, easily, if you could even get these gauges new. Could be $1,000 for all I know. And I'm not that well off by any means. But this sort of thing just takes time to do it right. So I got it squished in pretty good. I'm just gonna make sure there's no places where it's touching the outside edge that I think it's gonna stick in. So I'm gonna take some of this out. said, I really just don't want it to be on that outside edge very much. Yeah. And this is a little cheap screwdriver that I got out of a toolkit and found it yesterday, so it's now getting used. So maybe not perfect. This gauge is never going to be airtight. Obviously there's holes in it. There's a hole there. So I'm not trying to get it perfect. I just want it to not rattle. I don't want the glass to break, rattle. So here's my new piece of glass. My hands are dirty, but I don't really care because I'm just not going to touch the face, especially not the inside face. So I'm just holding it by the, that's a dirty rag. So we're going to lay it on some clean, cheap microfiber. And we're going to spray both sides. I hate cleaning glass. I'm terrible at it. Then we're going to fold it in. Kind of do that a little bit. And then just going to choose the side that's up to go on the inside. I don't care if the outside is dirty. And clean that anytime I feel like it. There might be some lint in there, but there's not much. Getting low on air duster. I really need to find some actual lint-free towels, because these are not. So you could drive yourself crazy doing this. Okay, so we're gonna take this, we're gonna set it into place gently. Again, if I touch the outside, it doesn't matter. And then we're gonna find a gauge face. We're gonna line up the 3 tabs. See how it squishes in. Push in firmly and twist. And see that doesn't seem quite. This guy I can't readily turn. This guy I can. So we're gonna take it back off. And I'm not even gonna put a full circle of goop back on there, actually. There we go. Now it's, yeah, I think that's pretty good. So now we have a little bit more glass cleaner. We have a brand new looking gauge. I could have bought new bezels for these. If I only had the 66 car that's behind me, I would have bought new bezels, but these were so nice that I didn't bother. They were, I think they were about $10, $12 each, maybe 20 for the big ones. So it would have been 40, 50 bucks, give or take. I don't know exactly, to pick up new bezels, but like I said, I'm on a budget. This isn't exactly a huge deal. But yeah, that's all there is to it. These lights get wired in when I install them, so there's just little bulb holders and screw-in bulbs. So some of you will say, well, put LEDs in there, and I'll say no, because I don't want to. I guess this makes me sound pretentious, but I like old bulbs, I like old things, or I wouldn't be driving this car. But for this situation, I'm not going to drive the car at night, but when I do, I want it to have nice warm lights in it. Yeah, I might not be able to see them, but that's less important. Oh, here's that square O-ring, and that's just a simple thing. So when this reinstalls, this is one of the clamps. So this will go in through the dash into a, sized hole that fits this diameter. And then this will screw on with a little knurled nut and probably a lock washer. Something like that probably, so that it doesn't, you know, so you can still get those outlets on there, the plugs. And the bulb goes in. What I'd like to do is, when I do rewire this car, if I do rewire it, I want to pick up some modern connectors, so I can get like a 10 wire connector, with weather pack probably, which is I think GM's style connector. You know, there's a smudge on the inside of the glass, but oh well. So what I'll do is wire the whole gauge cluster in as a breakaway unit. So you just plug it in, run the lines for the actual, because the speedometer, actually here's the speedometer. I haven't done this one yet. I took this apart when I got the other car because it wasn't actually working. So I had to take it apart and rebuild it and repair it, as opposed to this where I'm just cleaning stuff up. I think so. That's the drive. It uses a cable that spins based off the tach. And then this is the reset for the trip odometer, which I have set to 0 right now. So yeah, if you believe that either of these cars only had 47,000 miles on them, I've got a bridge to sell you. But so this is speedometer, regular odometer, trip odometer, and then 3 lights for main beam, oil pressure, and ignition. And this is sat open, well, I had it closed, but this has been open for a year or more, because I didn't have the right stuff to rebuild it. So now we do. So I'll do this next, same process. And then I've got the tach, which is also, as you can see, again, that's what they look like on the car. They were just, most of that is on the inside. So same process, just bigger. Should be pretty easy. Thanks for watching.